Unfortunately, some people will find themselves without a position in the industry, depending on the types of music that they write. I've heard demonstrations of AI music, and underscore is pretty good. You know,
It's not as
and
bad as we hoped it would be.
exactly. It's a but I think if you're a writer that has a unique voice, there'll always be a place for you.
Yeah.
And certainly people scoring to picture, but specifically for library music, if you have something interesting in your own creative process, then I think you'll always have some place to work.
What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Qs podcast, your weekly insight into all things production, library, and sync music. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go, I just want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. I know you have a ton of options out there, and the fact that you've given me your ears and or eyes for the next little bit, really, I do appreciate that. I also really appreciate our family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Qs who really do keep all of this going. So if you want to learn more about how you can join us at 52 Qs, but also support the community and get a ton of extra subscriber perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom sessions, and a ton more, then be sure to tune in a little bit later in today's episode. Speaking of today's episode, we've got a fantastic one for you today as I welcome to the podcast Senior Vice President of TV, Film, and Creative Services at SESAC, Miss Erin Collins joins us today, and really happy to talk to her. We're going to talk about her entire journey from orchestral musician to music producer up to SESAC, because I think it's really important. You hear from me all the time. I've even done an episode on PROs. We'll put a link up here for you where I unpack what PROs do and the different PROs in the US and how the royalties work and all that. So we've talked about that before, but I wanted to hear from the experts, and we talk about a lot of really important things, such as how the industry is evolving, the impact of streaming, the impact of technological advancements, and how payouts and cue sheets and all of this really, really affects composers. But even beyond that, we have to touch on the impact that AI has had and might have on us working composers. Future implications. How do we future-proof our careers in the face of AI? And even beyond all of that, how SESAC and the initiatives that Erin has been personally involved with as SESAC is creating more opportunities for more composers. So you definitely want to tune in a little bit later for that. And as far as my week, well, I'm on vacation this week, and don't let the fact that this looks like your standard episode fool you. Nope. This is the first time I've been in my studio since last Friday. I shut it down. I mean, I literally shut down the computer, turned off like all of the lights and everything, turned off everything that I usually don't turn. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be in here for several days. And so it's the middle of the week, and I'm popping in to record these portions of the podcast episode where I set things up and talk about my week and all of that to give off to Leo. And Leo, who is the Jedi master of editing these things, is going to take it. But I'm on vacation. And so, no, I don't have a new cue for you this week. I don't have anything new to give you this week other than to encourage you to, take some time off. Just step away. Just walk away. Walk away. Even now, Mrs. 52 Qs, Shannon probably would argue with this. I feel like my beard's an absolute mess because I woke up, I took my shower, but I didn't do my normal kind of beard routine. And yes, I have a whole beard routine, and I have five brushes or combs that I could use on my beard. And I actually This might be too much information. I don't know. But I have a brush right here. Here's a brush that I keep on my desk, and I could brush my beard. Oh, my subscriber numbers will either go up or down for doing this. But this is real talk, right? This is vacation, Dave. Man, I have no filter, I guess, in vacation mode, because I don't shave on vacation. Nope, I haven't shaved my head. I haven't shaved my face, and I didn't do my blow dryer routine. And yeah, that was actually part of my COVID projects. I had a couple of COVID projects, didn't we all? One of mine was learn to grill on a Weber kettle, and I went like hard. I can do like ribs, and I done Thanksgiving turkey and pulled chicken and wings and steak. So really figuring out how to use a Weber kettle properly was part of it, and the other part was getting really serious about my beard. What was I saying? And why did I even bring up my beard? Oh, because I'm on vacation. And so I want you, as you're watching this, to ask yourself, where can I find some time to deliberately step away from the thing that I love doing, but still takes its toll? Let me say that again. Find time to step away from the thing you love doing, but still takes its toll on you. Emotionally, creatively. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to output. It takes a lot to be creative. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort, and it can be exhausting. And you can work yourself to the point of exhaustion. And so Shannon and I find, weeks throughout the year where we deliberately don't do anything in the community. There's been no live streams this week. There's been no Zoom sessions, office hours, feedback sessions, no workshop. None of that stuff is happening this week. We've set it all aside with the idea that we are not going to work, quote unquote. I know it's what we love to do, and, do what you love and never work a day in your life. I get it. But, this is still a business, and we're still wanting to, support ourselves and put food on the table and keep the lights on and all of that stuff. But as soon as you start to use the thing that you love to do to support yourself, then you have to factor in periods of times where you can recharge and refresh. Otherwise, you will straight burn out. This is something I've learned. I've learned firsthand that if I don't pace myself and work in breaks, then I will work to the point of just feeling wrung out. And then I really, really start under delivering, and I'm just completely worthless. And so that's what this week is. So no new cue, no blow-dried beard, no freshly shaven face or anything like that. It's just me wanting to talk to you a little bit, encourage you to find the times, put them in your schedule. Don't, if you go on vacation, don't take a keyboard with you. And I used to do that. I used to take a little MIDI keyboard, and I'd take it with me to vacation with the hope and dream that I would write music while on vacation. I would inevitably, almost every single time, never do that. Then I felt crummy about myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm wasting my time. But I just had to be real with myself. Because when you start to use the thing that you love as a way to make money and support yourself, then there is a sense of obligation that kind of comes along with that, obligating you to yourself or to your clients or to your family or whatever. And that's what makes something not a hobby and into a career, even if it's a part-time career. That's what separates the hobbyist from the career. I'm not even going to say like professional, but just career-minded people, because I think there are plenty of hobbyists, professional quality, but at the end of the day, they could take it or leave it. They're not necessarily looking to pay the bills with cues. For many of us, we are, even on some level, even if it's a way to support themselves or support or subsidize. Is that the right? Supplement. There's a word. Supplement their income. So find time, put it on the calendar, set aside. If you don't, even if you don't go anywhere, then just watch movies, spend time with people you love, go to your favorite restaurants, sit around, talk, play games, whatever. Because I know I'm going to do that as soon as I'm done here. As soon as I'm done recording, going to go right back downstairs and probably continue our 9th or 10th Office rewatch party. So yeah. Now, as far as our topic, like I said at the top of the episode, I'm so happy to have Erin Collins join us on the podcast, not only to talk more in depth about PROs, what they do, what they can do, but also talk about the role of AI and how Erin might not be as worried as maybe some of us are, but even more beyond that, talk about how representation and diversity and the role that SESAC has had and that she has had in SESAC and really, really working to move the needle on those topics. So without further ado, here is my recent interview with Erin Collins. I've done an episode on performing rights organizations before, and we'll have a link floating somewhere about it. You could check that out. But, it's one thing for a composer to have a composer's perspective on PROs and royalties and cue sheets and all of that stuff. But, I thought, what? Why don't I just get somebody who is not only a member on the PRO team, but is a senior vice president of film and TV? I would love to welcome to the podcast Erin Collins, senior VP of TV and film and creative services for SESAC. Erin, welcome to the 52 Cues podcast.
Thanks, Dave. I'm really excited to be here.
And full disclosure, I'm a member of SESAC, and Erin is my rep, which is astounding to me. And one of the reasons I love SESAC, because I log into my account and I'm like looking at my cue sheets and there's your name at the top. Mm-hmm. And it's like you also like you're Christoph Beck's rep, and you're like these really, really big names. And I can reach out and say, hey, Erin, I'm maybe having a problem or something. And you'll return my email. So I just wanted to say first, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate all the work that you do over at SESAC and making me feel very, very welcome over there.
Well, we love having you. It's great to connect with you whenever possible.
Yeah, and I also love how involved in the production music world and the production music side of things. Of course, you're no stranger to production music. Before you started at SESAC in 2011, you worked with production music libraries, also with games and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from, a high school musician into being a senior vice president at a PRO?
Yeah, it's a strange career. I've worked in all kinds of interesting little corners of the music industry. I went to music school and studied oboe and English horn. I played professionally in orchestras and really, really enjoyed it. I moved around the country a little bit and ended up in Miami, Florida, where I worked for a music producer, someone who produced live events, that kind of producer. Which I did for a couple years. And then when I became a single mom, I had to get a real 9-to-5 job,
with benefits and all that stuff.
Exactly. I was one of my first friends to get a real job. And they're like, you're selling out, man.
And
I said,
my bills,
I have a 401k, man.
Yes, right. Got to keep the lights on.
Exactly. So I was very fortunate to find a job in print music. Which is a beautiful little industry. It's on its way out, I'm afraid. But it was a lot of fun. And I handled educational music accounts. So band directors, choir directors, church musicians, and it was a lot of fun. So I worked there for a number of years. And then, Florida got a little hot for me.
Can confirm.
So I moved to Los Angeles in 2001. And there I met Adam Taylor from APM Music, and he had just started at APM. I don't know if I was his first hire, but certainly one of the first people he hired. So I started in January of 2022 working for APM as the director of marketing. And then they, shortly thereafter figured out that I was a musician and I knew more than marketing. So I helped produce albums and worked with different libraries and created a few libraries for APM and helped bring them into the trailer music market and the video game market. So I worked for them until the end of 2006. And then I was on my own for about 5 years, producing more library music, a little bit of music supervision, and doing score supervision for video games mostly. And I still do that on the side because running a session really appeals to the bossy, picky side of me, which I normally keep under wraps, but I can let it fly in the studio. Sharp, flat, do it again. Yeah. We're running out of time. So I really enjoy that. And after a few years of working for myself, which I thought would be fun and cool, I discovered that it was not fun, and I was pretty miserable. Oh. So a friend of mine was visiting from New York, and we had breakfast, and I said, I kind of hate my life. Like, I don't enjoy being a freelancer.
Yeah, that's a good friend. If you can unload that kind of truth on him. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good friend. You keep that friend.
Yes, absolutely. And so he said, I think SESAC has an opening. I said, really? What's the job? He said, I don't know. Just send them your resume.
Does it matter?
Does it matter? No. So I sent in my resume and got a call back immediately. And Dennis Lord was my former boss. He came out to Los Angeles to interview me. And then later on, Pat Collins, who was the president of the time, came out to visit too. And they interviewed me, and we had lovely chats. And eventually I said, what is this job you're talking to me about? And they said, oh, it's working with composers. And I said, well, I know all about composers. I work with them all day, every day, and I have one in my house, as a matter of fact. So it was perfectly suited for me. And so I started in the LA office in 2011. And Dennis and Pat went back to Nashville, and I sat in my office trying to figure it out. And it was, it's a lot to learn. I mean, I knew about PROs a little bit as a musician and as a, working in libraries, but I'm not a composer. As a matter of fact, I'm a terrible composer. When I had to do it in school, it was just wretched. I really admire composers and their ability to have little, songs in their heads. And people ask me like, oh, sure, you can do this. Don't you have a little song in your head? I'm like,
do I?
I have somebody else's song in my head 100% of the time. I always have something in my head, but nothing original. So I've been with SESAC for about 12 and a half years now. And I love it. I love the job. I love working with composers. I love being in the industry. I miss playing, but this is a good consolation prize, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, man, in the last 12 years, you must have seen the industry shift. I mean, because 2011, that's just a few years away from, the beginning of the iPod, and iTunes Store and all that. I mean, you're less than 10 years from that. And not to mention all of the technological shifts that have happened. I know just in my 10 years in the industry, just sample libraries alone have dramatically democratized, what can be made in the DAW and everything. What are some of the more tectonic size shifts that you've seen in your time?
Well, there's been a lot of changes just in technology. People used to burn CDs and try to place cues with music supervisors by sending them CDs of their work. And I would go into the offices of music supervisors and see literally CDs stacked to the ceiling, it just crazy amount of just volume and wasted plastic.
I was about to say about a lot of landfill fodder right there.
Absolutely. And then that moved to sending links to queues, or sending attachments, I should say, MP3 attachments, which bogged down everyone's email and crashed computers and infuriated music supervisors. And eventually we got to the format we have now, with sending links to Dropbox, or technology such as Real Crafter, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. Sam and Sarah, they're great people.
Sam and Sarah are terrific. Yep. Yeah, I like them a lot. And I think they're doing a great job sending out, so people can send out a professional looking product. Yeah. And that helps a lot when approaching music supervisors as well, because you can put a little bit about yourself and links to your work, and they can browse as they would like and as much as they'd like. So yeah, I think a lot of things have changed for the better.
Yeah. And including like one of the, you mentioned sending MP3s. When I started, one of my big publishers was still FedExing like thumb drives up to CBS, sports overnight, just to make sure they get there, before Sunday's game and everything. But now, it's all, source audio or disco or something like that. And as a composer, I like that, all my metadata is all of there, and it's super easy, and I can send out links. And I know that that's dramatically improved distribution. From the PRO side of things, has systems like catalog systems like Source Audio or Disco, has that helped your job, or is it still kind of the Wild West and there's no real standard and it's just spreadsheets and mind-numbing amounts of data?
Oh, well, it's mixed. I mean, even the process of delivering cues to us, or in their own registrations, on the radio side in particular, we encourage people to upload their audio so that we can digitally detect it. But we still get information on spreadsheets. There are, we have bulk upload files, and LPROs do, a way to bulk upload things in a certain format. But it doesn't always come in that way. Cue sheets as well, where there are a few standards kind of, but up until recently, we're still getting like faxes of cue sheets.
No, you are not still getting faxes.
Oh, not anymore. No, but for a long time, for an obnoxiously a long time, we would get PDFs faxed to us. I'm like,
shamefully not far enough back in history that you are still getting faxes.
We're like, is the machine on? Do we have a machine?
Is there toner? Can we still buy toner? I mean, geez. Oh man, that's.
Are we still using the slimy paper?
When that rolls up on you, and it's just don't get it near heat source. But jeez. I used to work at a print shop. I know that smell very, very well.
Oh yeah.
Well, then that explains. That could explain why sometimes it takes so long to get paid. Because as a composer, I tell my students and the folks that I mentor and coach, if you have an idea for a cue, you're not going to. How do I put it? Don't expect to get paid next week. You can't pay next week's rent with a cue you just wrote. Now, in a year from now, maybe. But why? Let me rephrase this. Why does it take so darn long for us to get paid? When I heard it get played, there it is. It could get from my computer to air in a matter of days. But why does it take so long for something to show up on a statement?
Well, there's if everything goes smoothly, let's say your cue airs in first quarter. So it'll air the first quarter. Then the next quarter will have processing time. and then you'll get paid the end of that processing time. Now, ASCAP and BMI have an extra quarter in there because they have a lot of volume. So for SESAC, first quarter performances get paid on June 30th, the end of the second quarter. And for ASCAP and BMI, it would be one extra quarter. And that's if everything goes well. Now, all three PROs have Q sheet deadlines. Ours is 15 days after the start of the quarter. And if you miss that Q sheet deadline, then that gets pushed to the following quarter. Now, missing Q sheet deadlines is very common, mostly because people don't know if they're not very familiar with PROs and their deadlines. So it's very easy for it to slip a week or two past the deadline, and so that and. Again, it's not that anything's gone wrong. It's just, delays here and there. Another problem is just the filing of the Q sheets. As you can see, there's a theme here about Q sheets. Delays in or incorrect Q sheets because, unfortunately, at a lot of production companies, they have interns filling them out, and they don't understand how people get paid, and that people this is how people make a living by what you're doing right now, and the usage type matters, and the proper titles matter, and
IPI numbers, all that little to them. It's
all
just
that good stuff.
It's kind of like busy work, but to us, it's how I keep the lights on.
It can be. It's tedious. Yeah. I understand, and I understand why they put. Let's have this other person do it.
Production
but it's so
assistant.
important. Yeah, and the industry does have little Q sheet forums sometimes, or symposiums, I guess you call it. And we all try to get together and figure out, like, how can we do this better? How can we be more efficient? And, coming to an agreement when everybody has their own internal process of processing Q sheets. There's no industry standard so far, but, we're working on it. And it would be nice if we could all be on the same page and, just hit a button and send everything out.
Well, services like Tunesat and SoundMiner, or even like Source Audio has its own kind of thing. How far away are we from being able to have these kind of services help the process? Or is it something
that will ever happen?
Okay.
To be blunt. And the reason is not because the technology isn't there. The reason is people rename queues. So a same queue will have many names and many different publishers, perhaps, and the same fingerprint or the same watermark.
Gotcha.
If you watermark it different, for each one, but certainly the fingerprint is going to be the same.
And so the non-exclusive queues are getting retitled. Well, I know
Exactly.
that and like using like splice samples and that kind of thing, this is kind of reverberating through the libraries for that very reason, because they're false positives and that kind of thing. Do you think it's a good idea for composers to still like use those types like Tunesat? And if so, what can we do with that type of information other than, add to your IMDb page?
I love using Tunesat and Source Audio. The issue is that not all PROs accept that information as data, but you certainly can use it as proof that something aired and have a communication with your PRO representative and say, hey, listen, it was, I heard my song on the Super Bowl. Could you please look into that for me? Because I would like very much to get paid for that. So communication between you and your PRO is very important. Yeah. And some APRO does accept that information in the absence of other kinds of data.
Gotcha. Speaking of technological advances and challenges, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the 800-pound gorilla, which is just dominating all the conversation right now, which is AI. Obviously, as production music composers, AI looms pretty darn large, mainly because we are seeing what AI is doing to the stock photography industry and what it's positioned to do in the stock video industry. And so like kind of, I don't know if you're a Stephen King fan, the Langoliers, I don't know if you've read that book. Like, I feel like they're chomping at our heels, and it's only a matter of time before what we do gets kind of lost into the digestive
Yeah.
tract of the mindless robots. That analogy got weird, but how is AI being discussed?
hmm
How, if any, are the PROs positioned to kind of help future-proof us composers, especially in the production music world? Understanding that you don't speak for all PROs, but certainly this has got to be more than just idle water cooler talk
hmm
in amongst the PROs.
Absolutely. Uh, well, the good news is that AI generated music has no copyright. And so you can't register them with your PROs and we won't pay on it.
Hmm.
The other good news about AI is that, in my opinion, I can't imagine studios being interested in having music in their productions that they don't own, and we're not talking about a license
Right.
like production music. I mean, I don't see a future where AI is scoring any reputable studio's film or TV show. So I think that in production music, unfortunately, some people will find themselves without a position in the industry, depending on the types of music that they write. I've heard demonstrations of AI music, and underscore is pretty good.
It's not as bad as we hoped it would be.
Exactly. It's but I think if you're a writer that has a unique voice, there'll always be a place for you.
Yeah.
And certainly people scoring to picture, but specifically for library music, if you have something interesting in your own creative process, then I think you'll always have some place to work.
In your experience, what are those types of things? Like what not that you have to give super specific examples, but somebody listening to this right now, and maybe they only make music in the DAW. Maybe they don't have, a $3,000 mic, that they can record vocals into or whatever. But what are some of those kind of unique intangibles that might stand out? Any thoughts on
Well,
that?
it might be the composition process, the way you create a melody. The harmonies you use might be interesting or different. The trick is to have something that's interesting without being too interesting,
Right.
because in production music, the goal is not to stand out. You're
Right.
supporting, you're supporting a picture, you're supporting a feeling or something that the director's trying to get across. So it's a tricky process, and I can see that again. I'm so sorry that some people will find themselves having to find another area of the music industry to
Right.
go to.
Or maybe up their game. I mean, that's when we talked about AI,
That's
and we
true.
have a couple of times. It's like, okay, how do we future proof ourselves? Because I think if we're
Yes.
waiting for an agency like a PRO or the government to kind of swoop in and deregulate all of this, I don't know. I think that genie is not going back in this specific bottle,
No.
and nor would we necessarily want it to.
Mhm.
Talking about that, what about the consideration of AI tools? Like, let's say you have an AI chord generator that generates chord progression for you, or an AI plugin or something that will create a loop or a bass line. Where is that murky territory, or are we in the kind of the domain of using splice loops and samples from a loop service?
No, I think that you can use AI to inspire you. If you are turned on by something like, oh, that's an interesting chord progression. I hadn't thought of that before. And you use that as a base or something to inspire, and add your own touch to it. Hopefully a lot of your own input. And that becomes a composition that you would own.
Yeah. It's
So-
my hope that, you remember when about a year ago when AI art started coming out, it was like, this is amazing. We've never seen we've never seen like a mouse riding a tricycle up the Himalayas before. Nobody thought to paint that, but here it is. This is exactly what it looks like. But now I feel like we've kind of caught wind of, like, we can sniff out like what that looks like. Like, hey, that's kind of AI. It's my hope
Well, yeah.
that, I mean, it still looks good, but I feel like the human eye has become attuned to what maybe is and isn't AI. It's my hope that the ears can become equally as attuned to kind of sniff. No, I'm crossing my senses here, but to be able to kind of to dial in, like, hey, maybe that's artificial, and maybe that's just hopium I'm smoking. But that's
I like that.
that's the way that I choose to think of it. I think you're right. I think the lowest hanging fruit is going to get gobbled up. Well, let me rephrase that. I think low effort music is going to be going to be chewed up first.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We all know writers who hold down a pad and add another pad and turn it
Right.
in, and I think that's going away.
Yeah. The way that I've talked about it is if you can knock out a cue completely in the box in like a couple of hours, chances are the AI is going to be able to do it soon and probably 1,000 times faster.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm looking for ways that I can infuse humanness, infuse other creative elements, and so yeah. But
even a little bit of live something helps. But again, nothing that draws the ear too much.
Yeah. That's the challenge. That's the real challenge.
It is.
And so, are there any other challenges that you've seen that production music composers face versus maybe songwriters or even film scoring folks? Because our music isn't necessarily getting released on Spotify. We might not. We're not artists with a capital A necessarily. But in your experience specifically over TV and film at SESAC, what have been some of the production music challenges that you've seen over your time?
Well, here's another elephant in the room. Streaming. Streaming is a problem. I have a lot of opinions about this.
Well,
and
the
how
floor is yours.
Production music libraries do business. Again, all my opinions, just opinions. But having watched the industry change since the beginning of the 2000s till today, there's been a lot of changes in how production music libraries work. And I see a problem with a single needle drop in a single show, whereas that needle drop might have paid out, a decent amount of money on a network show. I see it paying almost nothing on a show online. And unless the show is very popular, even if it's a huge hit, one placement on one episode of one show is not going to generate a lot of money. And I think that the issue is that a lot of libraries do blanket licenses for big streaming services. And I would love to see them go back to charging per needle drop for streaming services, especially in instances where composers are able to receive a piece of the sync.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do have deals like that. And it's certainly the European business model has the sharing sync. But I think that would help a lot in terms of, because even half of a sync fee would be a lot more than you'd make streaming. I think that would be a fair way to continue using production music in that environment.
Do you think it's just the publishers trying to kind of keep their head above water in an ever changing business model, or is it just like Congress hasn't done enough to protect royalties and everything because the FCC isn't demanding that they report ratings and all of that stuff and viewership?
Well, some streaming services do report. It doesn't, but and PROs do get information.
Okay.
And we are not allowed to share the information for services like Netflix, per our contracts. And we would love to. The lack of transparency is irritating on your part and our part. Okay. But the volume is massive. I mean, it's a massive amount of streams. And to defend the streaming services a little bit, they are paying. They're not skimping on their fees to the PROs. The problem is the long tail of what airs on these services. Thousands of shows are available on streaming services. And while you might make great money off of a hit show, if you score it, then even that, having a hit show, the income looks weird. Like your royalties look weird because when a new show airs, everybody's watching it. It's a lot of eyeballs. And then everyone's seen it, and in the next quarter it might go away. And then the second season will come out, and there'll be a slight ramp up right before as people rewatch the first season. And then the second season comes up and it's very high, and then it goes away. So the only way that people make consistent amount of money on streaming is shows like, we have Seinfeld, where people will pop in an episode, watch it with dinner, or, and
Yep.
half-hour
my wife and I
comedies
call
are
it
big.
backgrounding. We're going to background
Exactly,
something. Yep.
exactly. It's
Well,
it's an interesting way to
Yeah,
make
where's the disconnect
streaming.
though? Where's the disconnect between, like, if you get a needle drop in a network show, is it that there are
Yes.
just physically more eyeballs watching it, and now the streaming platforms have the data to support? No, we're not guessing anymore by extrapolating Nielsen data. Now we can actually
Yes.
say how many eyeballs, or is it the royalty payouts are like super low, and isn't this why like the writers go on strike?
Why? Well, the fact is that the number of eyeballs can be similar on a network show and a streaming show. On a network, you have a fixed number of hours. There's 24/7. That's it. There's no, you only can put so much programming in, so many hours in to 1 week. Okay. So it's easier to calculate. We have X amount of money. We have X number of hours. These hours are more valuable. These are primetime hours. These are overnight hours, less valuable. And so it's finite, easy to calculate. We do get paid from the networks fairly well, and it's easy. When you go to streaming, you may have as many eyeballs on a certain show, but there's so many shows. So it's those hundreds of thousands of streams are spread out. It's when you look at a graph of it, it's like a few shows are very high, and then it drops, and then it just goes forever. So towards the end of the reports, you'll see like one airing of this, and they still get pennies, or one click.
Yeah.
And so it's just the tail of it is so impossibly long. I have done the math before in trying to explain to a production music library writer how one cue even in a big show is not going to pay anything because there's just so much content. If Netflix or Amazon or Hulu was to have fewer things on their services, maybe that would be better, but that's not the trend right now.
So what's
they want to have more and more.
What's the solution? Because on this hand, we can't just keep cranking out low effort cues, but on the other hand, in order to be able to make a sustainable living by all of this music getting farmed out to the streamers, you have to have an enormous quantity of cues in play to make up for that. So, or is that the question? I mean, that's the $1 million question.
That is the question. And I think the answer is to talk to libraries that you write for and say, what is your plan? Because you have to stay in business too. And if we're not making any money on these streaming services, and certainly you can't be making a lot,
Yeah, that's what I've had that conversation when I talk to my students. If I've gotten a royalty statement for like 41 cents, which thankfully SESAC took care of it within 2 weeks. I had so it was not a problem, but I tell my students, my publisher was very motivated to fix this because if I got 41 cents, he got 41 cents because he gets the other half of these royalties.
Exactly.
And so, I tell them that we're partners. They're not my publisher isn't my agent. They don't work with us. They are business partners, and we are all working together, rowing in the same direction. They're just different sides of the boat. But yeah, I don't know. I see this kind of I mean, is it just a race to the bottom and there's just an endless line of like Normandy Beach-esque composers waiting to just take these bullets until they eventually wash out? That's super, super dire.
That's grim.
I know that is grim, but maybe I need my low blood sugar, but that's how it feels right now. And so is there any ray of hope you could wash over this Spielbergian scene that I've painted for you?
Well, I think changing the business model of how music is licensed to streaming services would help. If they went back to, and I hate to say the good old days, but where they did have rate cards, and if you want to use this in your production, it's going to cost X amount, and maybe everyone would make more money. Maybe streaming services would be happy. Maybe the overall blanket license fee would be, the output of money would be smaller, which I hope not. But I think that going back to that model for streaming makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that needle get moved? Does it start with the PROs, like kind of leveraging, or does it start with organizations like the Production Music Association, who is?
I think the PMC is a great place. When we have the big conference, I think that's a great place to have these discussions with the libraries and say, is this working for you? Is this business model that worked okay with networks and cable stations? Is this working for you with streaming services? And if not, what can we do? Can we change how we work with the streaming services? Because they certainly aren't going away. So I think that it's talking to your libraries as a partner and saying, listen, this is a problem for me. It's certainly a problem for you. We can't keep making 41 cents per usage.
Right.
Even though the usage, maybe it lives on the streaming services, and next quarter you'll get 20 cents more.
I can get that extra pump of vanilla.
Woo! Yes, exactly. If that,
like, right. As soon as I said it, I'm like, I don't think that'll cover an extra pump of vanilla.
You may have to wait another quarter.
Yep, exactly. Or another 10 cues. Oh,
yeah. Well, volume has always been the key in production music. You know that.
Yeah.
So, you can't expect to make a living off of 10 cues or even 50 cues. You have to have volume. Yeah. And that's always been the case.
Yeah. And that's the gig. That's balancing, art and commerce. I've talked about that on the podcast, and quantity versus quality, and yeah, that's the gig. That's the challenge of it. We don't necessarily have to worry about, what are we wearing on the red carpet, because that's nobody's getting invited to the Oscars for writing a cue for the background of Toddlers and Tiaras. But
no, but it pays the bills.
But it does. It does pay the bills. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's, I think, so vital in the industry is representation. And it's one thing for middle-aged white dude to talk on YouTube about some of these things. But I want to take a few moments to talk about some of the efforts that you have led, specifically with SESAC, for increasing diversity in the industry, and especially in film and TV music, which could be just overwhelmingly white dudes. Can you share a little bit about the initiatives that you've spearheaded?
Sure, I'm happy to. And before you knock yourself as a white dude,
middle-aged white dude,
middle-aged white dudes are exactly who we need to help be advocates of our projects and our efforts. And frequently you're in the rooms that maybe other people aren't in. And when you're in those rooms and you hear people say, oh, women can't write, or, stand up for us. Even though this woman can't write, but
well, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. My wife is a music director. We've been married. It'll be 30 years this year.
Wow.
And she was
congratulations.
thank you. She's also a church worship leader. And she's experienced it firsthand, how women can't be worship leaders. And there's a whole religious discussion. I don't even want to, let's just stuff that back in a box. But I have long since, like, I don't even like using the term like female to describe a genderless occupation like composer, or just like I don't like male nurse, and so it's super important to me, and I appreciate you saying that. I on behalf of middle-aged woke white dudes, we promise to advocate as much as we can.
Thank you. So a few years ago, we started some programs at SESAC, and it began with a white dude, Christophe Beck, coming to me, and he and Jean-Nic Bontemps, JB. Do you know him? I'm not sure if you know him. Okay, he's a composer in the industry. He's and so JB and Chris got together and kind of hatched a plan about creating a grant program and other sorts of programs to help underrepresented composers. And they came to me, and I immediately thought it was brilliant. And we sat down and hashed it out, a plan, and, filled in the details. And then I went to John Josephson, and I have to name him because he's the one that made us happen. I went to John and I said, hey, we have this idea about creating a diversity program. And John said, wow, that's great. What do you need? And I said, how about $1 million? And he said, okay. And I said, how about $2 million? No, but so John gave us $1 million to play with, wow. And which was outstanding and more than we were expecting, and we were thrilled. And so we created kind of two projects. The first project, SESAC Scores, is a series of workshops and seminars and things that it's open to the public. We encourage underrepresented composers to come to our events, but anyone, middle-aged white guys can go too. And it's my favorite one is a weekend workshop that we do, and that's at the SESAC offices in Santa Monica. And we have, it's a whole weekend of scoring. And we'll have, Friday night, a little cocktail reception so everyone can get to know each other. Usually it's held at the sponsoring composer's studio. Sometimes it's Chris. We've also had John Swihart, Danny Lux, and, a few other people. And then Saturday morning, bright and early, we sit in our conference room and we do a spotting session of a film. And just a scene. And just like it would if you got a gig and you had to sit with a director. And so they do the spotting session, and then everyone goes back and with their mobile rigs. And SESAC's offices have enough empty workstations where everyone gets their little cubicle with their little rigs. And they start writing. And we take a break at lunch. We have a guest speaker. Then we go back to work. And at the end of the day, everyone plays their scene for everyone else, and we critique it. And we do that 2 days in a row. And it's a lot of fun. And we've had some really accomplished writers come through the program. So that's one thing we do. The other grant program is called Real Change, REEL. And it's, we work with New Music USA, which is a nonprofit out of New York. New Music handles mostly classical and jazz writers, but they wanted to get into film composing too.
Sure.
And they administer our projects, because Chris and I were trying to set up a nonprofit ourselves, and we realized this is hard.
It's a heavy lift.
It is. And we're like, maybe we can find someone who can do that part for us. And so we run the program through New Music USA, and we have someone assigned to us in our madness. We created a board with some top amazing composers in the industry, and we give out grants to underrepresented composers. No white guys, sorry.
Hey, we've had our time at the top of the top of the pyramid.
We love you guys. It's just not
it's totally fine. Yep.
And what we do is we provide money for film production, the score production itself. So our average grant is $20,000, and that gets applied towards hiring musicians or hiring music editors or, whatever you need, buying instruments. We're also co-sponsored by Native Instruments and Spitfire Audio. So they provide sample libraries and equipment to the grantees. And we've, oh gosh, I don't even know how many we've given out so far, but a lot. We've given out a lot of grants.
That's amazing.
And but we still have money to give. So if anyone in the audience is a film composer, we do have money for you.
And how would they go about signing up, or where could they go to get more information on all these?
Sure. newmusicusa.org is the website. And if you look under their programs, you'll see Real Change. And that's where the application process begins. And it has a list of requirements. We do have requirements like it can't be a studio production because they have their money.
Right.
You have to be already hired for the gig and, getting paid for it. So like a real job. And the goal is to help people, not at the beginning of their careers, but people at the glass ceiling,
right?
Who just need one good score to break through, to get them noticed, or to have something that sounds really, really good on their demo reel.
Yeah,
because a lot of people, it makes a huge difference,
Yeah, well, that budget. You could get real players, and you might be able to get a string section in, and that could do wonders. And I joke, we've had our time at the top of the pyramid, but the only way, in my opinion, to move the needle on this is to equip underrepresented composers,
yes,
and position them so that they could be more represented, so that 100 years from now, 200 years from now, we're not even having this discussion because, the 50% of the population, is making 50% of the music. And so it's programs like this that start the ball rolling.
Yeah, yeah. And representation matters.
It does.
We're really looking to inspire the next generation and really help the underrepresented composers that are out there now. And I've heard, so many times, are there women composers? Like literally hundreds, thousands. Yes. And production music library it has quite a few women and other underrepresented communities writing for them. It is happening in the production music community.
Yeah, and as a drummer, I've and being in high school bands and everything, the guys play the drums, the girls play the flutes, right? It's that mentality that just works its way all the way up into the industry.
Yes, it sure does. And I have to make a little side note here. As an oboe player, we don't march, and so I play drums. So,
oh yeah, what did you march?
Well, a few things. Sometimes I was in the pit because I was a piano player growing up,
so you
and
play
then
all the mallet
snare
instruments,
snare, and I did a parade on bass drum. That was unpleasant, but
can confirm.
Yes, but generally speaking, you're right. When you look in the percussion section, there might be one person who's not a guy.
Yeah.
And we're looking to change that, or at least have more visibility, to people who are doing it.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have all those links in the description for sure.
Thank you.
You know what? As we're wrapping up here, and Erin, really, really appreciate you. From the PRO's perspective, what are some things that you wished composers knew? How can we as composers help PROs do their jobs?
Well, and therefore helping yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's oddly self-serving. Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. We're all here for you.
That's right.
I think even simple things like paying attention to your registrations makes a big difference. If you're submitting your virtual album to a music library, check your PRO catalog and see, is it actually there? Is all the information correct? Sometimes it is, most of the time it is, but every once in a while something slips through the cracks, or there's a mistake or a miscommunication between yourself and a library about splits with the co-writer. Or if you changed PROs and you forgot to tell your publisher, there are mistakes that way. That happens occasionally as well. So paying attention to your own work is just a simple thing you can do that solves a lot of problems down the line. Also checking cue sheets. I think BMI does not have cue sheets at the moment, but they will be. So, yeah. I think that's their goal, though. So eventually all the PROs will have cue sheets available to double check, just to make sure that the intern did their job and copied down the information correctly, because even a misspelling of a title will throw things off.
Yeah, and it's probably safe to assume that everybody is all working towards the same goal. Like, no, I don't think there's anything nefarious. Like when I got my 41-cent check, it was an error. It wasn't anybody like, somebody's keeping my money, right? It's like, we're all in this together. We're all looking to make a living making music.
Absolutely. And the PROs are your partners in this. We're all on the same team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Erin, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you. And I said this before we started recording, I'm really proud to be with SESAC. And I know that, I started with ASCAP. I love that I started with ASCAP. They've got such a huge amount of resources and everything. And so my little Bambi legs into this whole side of performing rights, royalties, I was not ready for any sort of I need a lot of hand-holding. That having been said, I appreciate the kind of personal touch that SESAC has with its composers and artists. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate all the work that you do.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you. And it's been my delight to be here.
Once again, a huge word of thanks to Erin Collins for joining me today on the podcast. And for you family and friends subscribers, Erin's going to be joining us on August 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern for a Q&A and AMA with Erin to answer all of your PRO questions and royalties, and even if you have more questions from our conversation here today. Again, that is August 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern for all of our family and friends subscribers. So we are going to take a quick break, and you're going to hear from an alternate universe version of me tell you about how you can join 52 Qs and support the community. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors subscribers of 52 Qs, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly Q breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52 Qs. You can just go to 52qs.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers? Then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52qs.com. So like I said at the beginning of today's episode, there's no new Q this week. I'm on vacation, and so nothing new to roll out for you this week. However, I promise you next week, I'm going to have a new Q that is going to look radically different than what you are used to seeing here on the channel. And I am revisiting some territory that I really haven't explored in nearly 12 years. And so I don't want to say more. I don't want to spoil it, but next week have a cue for you to check out that I know will please some of our audience out there for sure. So you definitely want to tune in next week. Speaking of next week, we will be rolling our podcast live as we take a listen to the Christmas in July submissions. That is next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. The date on that is August 8th. You definitely want to join us for our live showcase and live voting for the current Christmas in July Composer Quest that closes this weekend, I believe. So it's still not too late to submit to the Christmas in July Composer Quest. We are doing 3 different briefs, if you will, that one is acoustic Christmas, another one is high energy Christmas, so like pop or EDM or even, high energy hip hop Christmas. And the other one is Christmas magic, like an orchestral Christmas. And so not only will there be like first, second and third place prizes, and the winner of the voting will be featured on the podcast, just like we did with the Superpower. And I imagine we'll have a winner from each of the 3 categories, but also all of the submissions are being considered for inclusion in some upcoming released albums to libraries. So if you're curious about all of that, then why don't you head over to 52Qs and join in the Composer Quest. It's free to join. It's free to join the quest. And so you can find out all the information there at 52Qs. But that's going to do it for us this week. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for spending your part of your day here with me. Just know that I love and appreciate all of you, and I hope you've had a good week. And I hope that you've had a good vacation, or you will be having a good vacation coming up. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I know you're going to have an amazing week. How do I know that? Because I trust and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52Qs, head over to 52qs.com.